Hey, 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 yeah, hey, what a time to be alive. I left them for dead, now I'm living right. No new friends, no new advice. That was high then, but we got bigger heights. We got bigger fish to fry. Bet on myself, then I roll the dice. Man, it ain't a gamble if you know you nice.
You're not a big drinker, or you occasionally?
If I'm on vacation, you would think I was a big drinker.
Yeah.
But just normal everyday life is just not room for it. Because, I said this in my book. I don't have that Michael Irvin gene where Michael Irvin could party and then he could wake up and go perform at practice and he was ready to get down. And, man, I just don't have that.
Yeah.
If I get drunk and I'm hungover, then I'm down for the count. I'm out. So
like who's that other guy that was on the Bulls? Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman.
Rodman, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy stories.
Yeah. He could, get drunk or high or whatever and stay up all night and just show up at the game.
See, if he was existing in 2024, he would be canceled.
Oh, for sure. And, it's kind of what you love about him is, it's like he's never changed because when you do see him on things now, it's like, and that's why he's not on a lot because, it would ruin him, but he hasn't changed a bit. He's still Dennis Rodman, and he's still, doing his thing that he's always done.
And that's what I think draws people to him is like 100% authenticity.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't matter if you're a big party guy or you're not a big party guy, as long as you're just 100% authentic, that's what people gravitate towards.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I've been hearing a lot and reading a lot about, the most attractive features about people, and it's authenticity.
Really?
And so for 100% of the time, the number one thing that people look for or that people are attracted to is authenticity. And so whether it's, positive or negative, at least, there's a certain amount of respect that comes with it where you're like, I don't necessarily agree with what they're saying, but, they keep saying it. Yeah. And they believe it. So, and they hadn't backed down. I think that's why Joe Rogan was such a success because, he was just like, no, this is what I think. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with me. And I don't judge you for disagreeing with me. And so I think that's why he was so successful from the start is, people are like, he didn't know if he was telling the truth. He was just telling his opinion. Yeah. And then, getting people on there that he could either argue with a different opinion or that backed up what he was talking about. So I think that's why he gained so much popularity so fast.
And there's like the opposite of that, which is like, because Joe Rogan's like overall liked. I think of someone like Floyd Money Mayweather or like Jake Paul, who's like hated. Yeah. But they're authentic. They're so authentic about who they are.
Yeah.
And that still draws like eyeballs.
Yeah. And it's, there's people like Mike Tyson. He's like, I think it's 50-50. It's like,
right. It's like, I like him, hate him.
People hate him, but it just depends on what he's talking about or what you ask him.
Even Trump.
But the answer you get is going to be raw and it's going to be real and consistent. And so, and that's what, I'm sure you're the same, but that's the parts I don't like is like, look, take a side. Don't be so sometimesy, just if I'm around Ara, I like this. If I'm around Mike, I like this. And, depending on who's got the better point or who's paying, I'm going to agree with them and we'll gang up on Ara. Yeah. Or we'll gang up on Mike. And man,
that's so political.
I know.
Like I think of, the first person that comes to mind where I think of that is like Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
It's like you're just playing the side, you're playing the field. And there's so many other people that play that boundary in politics, but it's like you can tell you're just doing it to get either a vote or a like or get your bill paid or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think there's more people like that than there are authentic. And, I'm finding that out because of the book. Yeah. When you're that vulnerable and you're that just, hey, this is what happened to me. This is my life. This is how I dealt with it. And now here I am. I told you this last time we were on here, and it's still true. I get a message every single day about the book. Every day. Today it was from a 97-year-old woman. And so just congratulating me for being able to get through those things and all that. But the flip side of that I'm finding is, and not often, but the flip side of that is there are people that use that to kind of, okay, I have a playbook here that tells like how to get at Mike. And
wow.
I can with this book, I can establish a history of something. And so any if-then statement that you make to somebody, all of a sudden it's a threat. And it's like, well, because Mike's violent. Remember, look, I got a whole book here that says he went to prison for fighting. And so I am finding that there's one or two people especially in the last few months, that have like, obviously it's like this. And it's just like an if-then statement. If you do this, I'm going to do this. And they're like, oh my God, you threatened me. And so as I'm digging into it, basically any if-then statement could be seen as a threat. And so, but on the flip side of that, now that I'm considered a public figure, it's no longer, it's no longer libel or what's the other one?
Defamation?
Yeah. Well, now it's defamation of a public figure. And so if I decided to pursue that, it's a felony. And so
on them.
And so
I didn't know defamation was a felony.
Defamation of a public figure is a felony.
Dang.
But in order to get it to stick, you have to prove malicious intent. To prove libel or slander, you just have to prove neglect. But in order to prove defamation of a public figure, you have to prove malicious intent. So, so you got to be careful about who you attack and because now I didn't know any of this. I had to be educated on this because, I'm kind of dealing with something that I'm having to basically go to law school for, and these lawyers are telling me, it's a different category now that, you don't feel like it because I'm not famous. Yeah. But because I'm an author and because I'm a, commentator on UFC Fight Pass, I'm considered a public figure.
Definitely.
And so whenever you go into that category, it's something different. I mean, they don't see any difference between me and a senator or a politician or a president or
because a public figure is a public figure. Once you're past that threshold, you're past that threshold.
Yeah, and there's a legal categorically. There's a legal description of what a public figure is.
What's the description? Is it like you're on TV?
I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's like
It's
not a certain amount of followers. It's just like if you do anything that puts you in the eye of the public. And so where people know you by either a job you have or something you accomplished. And so it's something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along those lines. 2 months ago I could tell you word for word.
Yeah.
But I've filled my head with so much information since then. So so I am finding out that that is the one downside that I've had to deal with so far from writing the book, and then just being that little bit in the public eye. It's different, and that's why famous people the one advice they'll give you is be enough to make a lot of money, but don't be famous. Yeah. And so because it's a lot more to deal with than you would think, even on the very, very small scale. But when it comes to the law, there's no difference between me and them.
So when people are reaching out to you and they're using like if-then statements, what is the what are they? Is it people that you've known in the past? Is it what is that intent that they're coming at you with? Because now that's something it's something new that you're having to deal with.
Yeah, and it's not an if-then statement from them. It's an if-then statement from me.
Okay.
So if I make an if-then statement, they're saying, oh, he threatened me. And then they're trying to
they're gaslighting
get the police involved and all those things because I threatened them.
So they're gaslighting you.
Yeah.
And then then you say, oh, if you do this, then I'll do this, and they consider it as a threat.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I could say, all right, if you don't stop looking at me, I'm going to walk out of here. Uh-huh. And you're like, oh my God, Mike, you just threatened me. And so, and it can be whatever.
Yeah.
But basically any if-then statement can be perceived as a threat. So, I'm finding out through, having to go through this thing, and, it's not a big deal. I was just another thing I got to deal with.
Yeah.
And so, I made a post about it's a little bit hard to smile inside sometimes because, you know, I'm one of those guys. I don't have any bad days ever. And, you know, and then something like this happens, and I have so many good things going on, and then you spend so much time thinking, just why? This is a waste of time. Why? And you kind of get caught up in that. And, you know, I'm having to every day just wake up and be like, just this will be behind me soon. No matter what, this will be behind me. And so, you know, you want to, because I wrote this and because I wrote it for the purpose of helping people, you know, you want it to be taken that way 100% of the time. You just have to accept the fact that, you know, there's always a loaded gun there that people can say, well, here's a history. Yeah. And so, you know, forget about the 15 years of undeniable proof that I am what I say I am. You know, when I was 26, I was a womanizer, so always a womanizer.
Yeah.
And so you can't escape those things sometimes. And, you know, I've had to accept that, you know, I wrote about it. You know, this is the downside of being so vulnerable is like, okay, well, you got to take the good with the bad. The good is so good every single day. My heart is so full every single day. You got to take the bad parts too and just, you know, kind of run with it and just deal with it as they come. And then hope that, you know, if you have to make an example that you can say, hey, you know, just leave me alone. And, and that's really all I'm shooting for is like, you know, I want to live a good life. I want to help as many people as I can. And also, if you don't like me, just leave me alone. It doesn't bother me at all. It's none of my business.
See, that's the thing. It's like when you help, let's say, when you make a post and it reaches, let's say, 100,000 people, and there's maybe 10 people that comment bullshit.
Yeah.
Those 10 people are so loud.
Yeah.
And it gets into you so much deeper than, let's say, the 90,000 people that like the post.
Yeah.
Because the like is such a small little heart.
Yeah.
But the comment that says, oh, fuck you, da-da-da.
Yeah.
It's so loud.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, those things don't bother me at all.
Yeah.
And so I'm one of those guys that in my business and whatever I'm doing, I'm always going to address a negative review. So if somebody goes on Yelp and says, Mike's, you know, tiny home community is a piece of shit, I'm not just going to let that sit. I'm going to respond to it. We'd love to improve our processes. Tell me what you thought was a piece of shit about our property. And I want them to go into it. Okay, so, and then I'll basically minimize it to, okay, so you had a problem that ours didn't have a bathroom in it and you use a bathhouse instead of having a bathroom inside. We have those cabins available. You chose not to book those.
Yeah.
And so then it takes a little bit of their power away. And then also, you know, it gives credibility back into the fact that you're not just letting this lie and, you know, obviously they're not addressing it, especially if there's more than one.
Yeah.
You know, obviously he's not addressing it, so it's got to be true. And so, and people are just that shallow and that, you know, like you said, they can go through and they can see 100 good reviews and they're like, oh, well, you know, there's a bad one. So that's reason enough for me not to go.
Well, because people, they if you look for the bad, you're going to find the bad. So like, there's like a exercise Tony Robbins does, and he goes, okay, look around and look at everything red.
Yeah.
And then you're looking around and you like look at this, and then he goes, okay, now tell me everything that was blue. And it's like, well, I wasn't looking for blue, so you can't tell me anything that was blue.
Yeah.
Because you're looking for the red, you're gonna find the red. If you're looking for the blue, you're gonna find the blue.
Yeah.
So when people are like, we do this when we go to like restaurants, right? We want to go to like, let's say a steakhouse. We go look at the reviews. Everything's good. We see one bad review. Oh no, this is not good.
Yeah.
So people don't realize how much power they have in terms of their own lens on looking at life. Because if you want to look for opportunity, we're in America, the land of opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's people complaining, but they're not looking for it. Yeah. They're looking for either a handout or whatever it is, but people find what they look for. And I really, really do believe that. Yeah.
I mean, we see examples of it every day that we walk in and out of. And, you know, I think it's, I think that it's easier to be negative about something because you don't really have to have an opinion for it to be negative. You know, you can just say it sucks, and you know, they're like, okay, well, what sucks about it? I don't know, it just sucks. And then you walk off, and you're like, and they're like, oh, okay, well, it sucks, but you know, it must suck because they said it sucks. But you know, if you're negative about it, you don't really have to have an opinion. You just have to say something negative, and so then you don't have to really put any thought into it. So I think that's the problem, is that, you know, if there's a problem, put some thought into why you booked it in the first place. Why did you go there in the first place? What was your expectation for it? I mean, are you going to give, you know, Waffle House a bad review about their steak? I mean, what did you expect to get when you went into Waffle House and you're like, oh, their steak is terrible? If I saw that review, I'm like, of course it's terrible.
Yeah.
This is not a steakhouse. So, so yeah, I just think that, you know, that people get into those grooves where, you know, and I used to do it when I was younger. I used to just think all the time, it's like it's negative and I can't do it, or I don't want to do it because of
it's the path of least resistance.
And it's not just the path of least resistance, but it's the path of no resistance, because, you know, as negative as you want to be, or whatever reason you don't want to do it, guys like us are glad. You know, we're like, you know, I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that are glad that I didn't apply myself when I was 25. They're glad I didn't apply myself. You know, they're glad I didn't invest in something because, you know, they don't want me to have $100 million.
Because if you did it, they think that they also could have done it, but they didn't do it.
Yes.
So that means, okay, let's say for example, this podcast, I have been saying I want to do a podcast for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And I finally did it. And then everyone that I was trying to like build with or bring around or have help or support, everyone said no. And then once I do it, everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
I'm like, where was this one?
Yeah.
So it's just so funny how, because once I do it, then everyone else goes, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. So my input or my opinion matters. But it's like it never did.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I just had an incident with one of my partners, and I told him we're opening this, we're going to do this real estate deal. Don't tell anybody until we open. It's like, when we're about to open, then we'll tell people. And they didn't really understand. And so I was like, just trust me. Just, you know, I don't want to try to masterclass you on, you know, kind of human behavior, but just trust me. You don't want people telling you, you should do this, you should have done this, you know, why are you doing this? Sure enough, you know, they're like, hey, man, one of our friends that we've been known forever, they want to come out and see. And, you know, we told them we were doing. And I was like, okay. And, you know, I wasn't mad, of course, but I just told them, I was like, just remember what I told you. And here's what's going to happen today. And I was like, and I don't think they're malicious in their intent. They just can't help it. But when they come out here, we're going to walk them around. They're going to show us. They're going to tell us 5 or 6 things we're doing wrong. They're going to tell us 10 things that they would have done. They're going to tell us not to do this. And then they're going to offer their services and for a piece of the pie. And every one of those things happen, and like clockwork. And so, and again, they were nice people, and, you know, they didn't say or do anything that would say you don't need to be friends with them. But, oops, thought I had that on silent.
No worries.
But, you know, there's just, I don't think they had malicious intent, but they did exactly what I said, and they just couldn't help it. They, you know, they're saying it out of love. They're like, no, you should have done this. You should have done this. They have no experience in this industry at all. Right. And so, so when you know that and you expect it, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know that, and these friends that you trust and that you think are, you know, acting in your best interest, it's just like you said, they're like, wait, how come he can do this and I haven't done it?
Yeah.
And, you know, I have land, I have this much money. Why didn't I meet this guy? Why didn't he come along here? Why didn't I think of this? You know, and so it's not that they don't want them to be successful.
It was because they weren't looking for it.
I just wish I would have gotten the opportunity either beside them or instead of them. And, you know, you'll never know because they would never say that out loud. Those are things they talk about when they get in the car and they're leaving, you know, and they're like, damn, I wish we would have ran across something like that. And then not taking into consideration any of the things of what's going on back there that the chaos they just left.
Yeah.
You know, they just left two brains scrambled. They're like, are we doing the right thing? Are we spending money in the right spot?
Yeah.
Are we doing this? And
now you've robbed that person of a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Like there's imagine how many deals have fell through or got mixed up because someone wanted to ask their lifelong friend.
Yeah.
or whoever that person is.
Yeah, and it's weird too because I just don't think they mean to do it. I don't think they even realize that's what they're causing.
Yeah.
But, you know, and if you're confrontational with them, like, hey, they don't need your opinion. They have mine. All of a sudden, oh, why is he such a tyrant? What's he hiding with this information?
Yeah.
Why doesn't he want people talking to you or giving you their opinion? What's he hiding? And you're just like, oh. So, you know, I don't fault people for, you know, kind of their thoughts because it's what their previous thoughts and actions have taught them. And so, and they just haven't been taught the way yet. You have to experience some, you know, big problems or some lost deals or, you know, whatever you have to experience to be like, wow, I should have listened. Because, you know, I had 50 of those moments probably in a year in my 20s. And, you know, but I didn't even know it until I was 33 or 34. It's like, damn, they told me that when I was 25. Why didn't I listen? And now I've lost 9 years because I've had this lingering thought that just wasn't the case. And, you know, everybody says it. The deals aren't out there. That, you know, because of the economy, the deals aren't there. The rates are too high, so the deals aren't there. It's like, oh, you're looking in the wrong place. And you have the wrong mindset for it. If the deals aren't there, somebody else is saying the deals are here. I just got to find them.
Yeah.
And they're looking for them. And they're looking for the red. They're looking for the blue. They're looking for the things.
They're looking for the
that
green.
You said that, hey, man, they're just not there. And people like you and I are going, good. Keep saying that because that's what 98% of the people say. That's just what they think. And that's why the top 1% are the top 1% because they're the only 1% of the population that doesn't think like that. And there's people that are in the 1%, people that will never get there, and there's people that are on their way. And it all just depends on what you believe and what you know, how you filter information as it comes to you. Is it useful? You know, for somebody to say, oh, the deals aren't there. Is that useful to you?
Mm-mm.
No. And it's like, okay, I'm filtering that out. So that acts like it didn't even happen.
Right.
And so, you know, it's like, the deal's there, but you need $20,000 in cash. Okay, there's a little something. Now there's some substance to that. But what's the part? Okay, the deals are there, you said. But now let's find out if that $20,000 in cash has validity. Do I need $20,000 in cash? No, you find out actually you need 100. And so, like, okay, well, now you know. Now you got something to work toward. But the deals are still there. And so, you know, but the deals aren't there for somebody to come and just throw in your lap and say, you don't need any money, you don't need any time, you don't need any education, you don't need to put anything in, just here they are. If you'll just pick that up and go deposit in the bank, it's, you know, you're a millionaire. Congratulations. You're right. Those deals don't exist. And so, you know, if you don't get up every day and think, okay, me laying here pays nothing.
Yeah.
So you get up, you put your feet on the floor, you make your bed, and then you go do your day and you start the process. If you're not doing that, the deals aren't there. And that's what I've found. And, you know, the people that, you know, if we followed those people home that said, you know, you should be doing this, you shouldn't have done this. You follow those people home, and if you are a fly on the wall and you listen to their conversation, and then people who are in the know about what's true and what's not in real estate or whatever your business is, the people who know what's true or not, you know, if you could just show up and pop in, it was like, hey, all those things you said in the car on the way home, here's some education about why those aren't true. And here's 10 things that prove that that what I'm telling you is true. And here are 100 people that I'm going to introduce you to that just made this work. And so do with that information the same thing you did with the information that you had before, and go talk to them again. After you do this, then they'll be like, you're doing the right thing. We just thought, this because we heard this or because we thought this. And you educate yourself. And if you don't, you're going to be in that mindset. When you're telling other people their deals are no good, you'll never get any either.
The only thing with that is you can give someone all the tools and resources and education and evidence, but if they're not open to receiving it, you're just wasting your time. Because there's people where you can give as much evidence as you want, but if they're not open to receiving it, you're just wasting your breath.
Well, the proof is in the fact that there's a thing, I don't know if you ever heard of it, it's called the internet. It has every piece of information
right
about everything you've ever wanted to know. And so,
but people can go to IamRight.com and they can go find that bad review.
Yeah.
They can go find that one review or one negative comment, and they say, see, look, I knew I was right.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is like they're just basing it off of the things that they're hearing or seeing.
What they're wanting to look
one
for.
Thing.
They're looking for the red.
And so they're not willing to educate themselves about it in order to make, better decisions about whether you're right or wrong. And so I think that's what's, of course that's what's missing. It's like I said, their intentions are not bad. It's just, they're just not educated about, the reality of what they're talking about. Everything is what they've heard. Everything is a social media, 10-second clip of, because for every Tony Robbins, for every Grant Cardone, for every, whoever, there's a, you see them all the time. Like, Grant Cardone's trying to sell this. Here's what he's actually doing.
You heard of CoffeeZilla?
Oh, no.
He's a YouTuber, and literally his whole platform is finding these big people or whatever and just tearing them down.
Yeah.
So he literally has literally multi-hour videos of finding a Grant Cardone and just saying, okay, here's everything wrong with everything, and just dissecting and destroying every person. But there is some validity to it, but at the end of the day, it's like, oh, you're just doing this with the intent of tearing someone down.
Yeah.
And but his intent is not sorry, I shouldn't say just tear someone down. His intent is to help the audience.
Sure. And there's a customer for that.
There is.
And so I don't blame him either. He has found a market
right
that he can, and he's probably one of the only ones doing it, and he's definitely the biggest, it sounds like. So there's a market for that.
Yeah.
But it's the same people that are saying, don't do that. Now they have a valid resource for saying don't do it. But, I've listened to Grant's stuff, and I've listened to kind of what he talks about. And if you take the meat and potatoes of what he's talking about, it's valuable information.
Yeah.
And then the workbooks that he's selling and those kind of things, it's valuable information. But he probably knows statistically 90% of the people are going to do nothing with it.
Exactly.
They're buying it on the dream, and the people that didn't do anything with it, and Grant knows this. He's like, yeah, he doesn't care what that guy's saying. All that guy's doing is shining more light on Grant, and he doesn't care. And so, the possibilities are endless when it comes to, you can sell insurance. I can tell you 500 reasons not to buy insurance.
Literally. And
you can subscribe to my page, and I'll tell you other ways to make money or to cover yourself besides insurance. I don't know that. I'm just using that as an example, but
yeah.
But because I'm not going to do that, but I mean, there's a market for it, because there's a market for people that want to have a reason to tell you no. You're educating people on why to buy life insurance, and there's a market for people like, well, I know I need it, but I want a reason not to have to. I need something to be able to tell, or I know.
Oh, 100%. There's so many reasons.
So they find a validation, just like in your negative review you talked about. There's a little bit of validation in it that they thought, yeah, this Mike says this sucks. Why would I do that? And I kind of trust Mike, and not for any reason, just they like what I'm saying better because they get to hold $50 or $100 a month or whatever it is, they get to keep holding that. And, they're still in the save mentality, and they're still in the, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But,
But I would just, like, what I love what you said is pull up the internet. Let's go to GoFundMe.com.
Yeah.
Like, and just scroll. And you just see stories, and you're like, damn. Like, just damn.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else you can really say. And it's like, I'm one of the families that were affected by, like, breast cancer, and so are you, and so many other families that have been affected by these situations. And it's like, you can't tell me that these are fake. So that's it's people just don't know, and it goes back to education. Yeah. People don't know the power or the flexibility of what it can do.
Yeah.
And so when people don't know, they're scared of the unknown, or they're fearful of the unknown. So then it's just more of saying no to the unknown.
Yeah. If you log on to hear and listen to us talk about this, you're motivated while we're talking about it. You're taking notes. But if we give you homework and we tell you, you got to do this, you got to do this, and it's going to take a year.
Yeah.
If we give them the reality of this is what it takes and here's what you have to do, and I can give you a step-by-step algorithm for success. I can give it to you, but you got to do it. I can give it to you, but I can't do it for you.
Yeah.
We could give them that. It's whenever there's like, man, that's a long list, and Game of Thrones is about to come on, so I'll get to that after Game of Thrones, and then at the end of that, they're like, well, it's late. I'll get to this tomorrow, and then they're like, man, they start looking at the whole list, and they're like, how do you tackle something that big? And man, it's a year away. It's like, ugh, it's not gonna hurt to stop tonight, and matter of fact, I'm about to do a webinar on procrastination.
Oh, man.
How it affects you and all these things. And, I'm about to do a whole e-learning series about procrastination, and we're going to do we got all kinds of cool stuff in the works. But yeah, we're just I just think about over the years how many deals have been lost, how many opportunities have been squandered because of procrastination, because I'll get to it tomorrow, or I'll or just even if it's procrastination until it goes away, where it's like, I was going to do it. Now I kind of forgot what they said, and I lost that list and I don't have it anymore. So instead of looking for it or going back and listening again, because, knowing me, this will be a 5-hour podcast and I got to listen to the whole thing again. And so they're like, I don't have 5 hours. And you're like, you do though. And so they just how many deals like that, or how many opportunities have been squandered? How many times have you looked back? How many people have we told, hey man, this will take a while, it'll take a year, it'll take 6 months, it'll take whatever. How many people have gotten to a year and been like,
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. And man, I wish I would have started that a year ago. And every jiu-jitsu practitioner says, I wish I would have started when I was 10.
Right.
And you don't get that time back. There's nothing you can do about it except start now.
Yeah.
And you're not too old, you're not too anything. It's just educating yourself. And I don't care how uneducated you are, every piece that you take in is educating yourself a little bit more. And if you can, nail that down to something and become an expert, you can make money at it. So it's just that part of procrastination and getting past that hump and getting past the negative talk and getting past the, oh shit, this person thinks I shouldn't do this and I trust that person. And you're like, okay, cool. Now go ask that person, since you trust them, how much they know about this. And they're like, well, my uncle was in it in 1984 and, he said it was a terrible business. I was like, okay.
If you ask someone in 1984, should you invest in the internet, they would say it's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you did, you'd be a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
So it's like the advice is relative.
Yeah, because, people advised me in 2016 or 15, dude, you
10
buy
years
some
ago.
Bitcoin.
10 years ago.
You need to buy some Bitcoin. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's cryptocurrency, man. It's the future. And I was like, whatever. I'm investing in this thing that Walmart's doing, and it turned out to be a flop, and lost 80 grand. And if I'd invested that same 80 grand at that time in Bitcoin, I mean,
we wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, we would be like,
you'd be in.
Yeah,
you'd own Bora Bora.
Yeah, people would be talking about it as like, this guy invested in Bitcoin 10 years ago. So, and if you dwell on those things and use that as a reason not to do something else, that's how your life's going to end.
Yeah.
Is just by, I don't want to take any risks. I want to save, and I want to, I'm going to save. And, my mom worked for 20 years and put her money into a 401k and, maxed it out every year. And after 20 years, she had like $185,000 in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, and she's been there 20 years and she's 61. So that's my stepmom, but, it was like
the mom that came out.
Yeah. So she's like, I'm like, she's like, when can I retire? I was like, you're healthy. You're going to live another 20, 25 years at least. I mean, you can't. When you're 75, maybe, if that keeps multiplying, and, I didn't do the math, but it's like, okay, if you took $300 and you put this in something where you could draw from it, it's $300 a month.
Yeah.
To last you 25 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing.
People don't, because I'm in the retirement business, so people don't realize that the average 401k account has about 200,000. The society has told us retire at like 65, 67.
Yeah.
200,000, that's not going to last you maybe like 5 years, maybe, if you stretch your money out.
Yeah.
So by 70, you're out of money. And people are living way past 70.
Yeah.
So when the 401k was introduced, it's a tax code, Internal Revenue Code 401k.
Yeah.
What it did was it took the pressure off employers to pay for their employees' retirement plan and put it off of them onto the employer.
Yeah.
So now the employer has no liability, no responsibility to pay out that employee, no matter how many years they work.
Right.
So it's people don't realize that 401k is just a tax code to help the employer save on taxes. It's not to help you.
Yeah, and plus it becomes a crowd-funded hedge.
Yep.
Where they're like, oh, okay, I've got 30,000 employees putting in 4 or 5% of their pay every single week or every single month or however it's taken. And do you think they're not making money off the interest of that money?
Oh, 100%.
Or do you think they're paying you what they're making off
the
of that?
interest, the
No.
fees? Because people don't realize when you have a 401k, you're paying fees.
Yeah.
Like you're paying fees to have someone manage your portfolio.
Yeah.
Even though it's through your employer through a third party, you're still paying those fees.
Yeah.
So whether it goes up and down, the 401k is in the market.
Yeah.
So the market can go up and down.
Yeah.
Whether it goes up and down, you're still paying those fees.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like you said, if the market goes down, you're like feeling pretty good about yourself. Oh, I've got 400,000 there. The market goes down. You get a statement 6 months later and it's like, I got 285 in there. It's like, what happened? It's like, well, that's kind of the fluctuation of the market. And if you stay in another 10 years, it'll go up technically.
Do you have 10 years
so,
though?
Yeah. And it's, it's just the system is built to protect you from yourself a little bit. So you have a little something. But it's definitely not so you'll thrive. It's, I've heard of people that started at IBM when they were 19 years old. Now they're 70 or 65 and they retired from there. So every penny they've ever done has gone into a retirement and they're able to retire, and have a good life. But not if you stayed at that low level.
Those stories are very, very few nowadays because inflation is just outpacing everything.
Yeah.
You have to make more money.
Yeah, and it's weird. My day job, I make plenty of money, but it's still, I'm like, God, so for somebody who makes half of what I make, how do they? It's hard to
fathom.
It's hard to fathom. Like, how do they go on vacation? How do they? Are they doing all this on debt? Or are they doing it on
taking
credit?
care of a family, having kids? Like I make good money, and you know, I don't have any kids or anything like that. And it's like, dang, if I had kids, this would be so much more difficult.
Yeah.
And there's people making a fraction of what I make with like 3, 4, 5 kids.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how?
Yeah. And it's not a knock on them. I'm like, I just wonder how, because, you know, I have 5 or 6 incomes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need them.
Right.
Like,
Right.
Like, yeah, man, I need them. I have to have them. Like, if I don't pay attention to one thing, I'm like, oh man, I'm short. And then, you know, it just can't happen. And so, and they don't all pay like my day job does, but without supplementing those, you know, I don't have any kids either. So I'm 49. So you would think I'm a little farther along in life, but remember, I started over from nothing 15 years ago.
Right.
And so, you know, to relay that, if somebody got out of college and were 22, they would be 37 now in the job market for 15 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'm, you know, not a lot of people could retire at 37.
Right.
You'd have to do really well. You have to be really smart, and, you know, opportunities would have to find you, and, you know, and you act on those opportunities. And so,
no mistakes have been made.
Yeah. A lot of people just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So that's how I think of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm at 37 in the workforce again, but I'm 49 years old. So I've got 12 years to make up that, you know, I basically, even though I was making money in those times, and even though I was, you know, having fun and doing things, I was winning and losing and winning and losing and winning and losing, and didn't really care, you know, about the losses. It's like, yeah, I'm still young and I'll make it up. And then all of a sudden something happens that, you know, you're like, wow, I didn't plan for that. And, you know, and then you got to start over, and it's, you know, it can happen. And I just don't see how, you know, even people that make $100,000 a year, like, okay, that's a good amount of money to make.
That was the American dream.
And and you're like, okay, my house payment's this, my car's this. Now let's say we have 2
paycheck
cars,
to paycheck.
and now let's say we have 2 kids, and I was just like, you know, with as much as clothes are and food is, and just, you know, I can't wrap my mind around it. And I just can't wrap my mind around, how can that be that you can make $100,000 a year and struggle like that? How can it be? And
that's
just
Americans.
The reality of the way it is now, and it's rough. It's a rough reality.
You know what's funny? You were saying the you win and lose, and that's the stock market.
Yeah,
that's literally how the market operates. You win and lose, but people don't realize that those losses compound.
Yeah.
Imagine if there's and this is kind of what we talk about in the financial world with insurance. It's like those you don't have to take losses, because you can put insurance on your money. So imagine you win, and then during those losses you just stay still.
Yeah.
And that's the indexing strategy, like stair steps.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I had no idea about that, and that's a way that we hedge against losses, because one of my mentors, he has the 5 gotchas of money. One is inflation, taxes, losses, healthcare. I mean, healthcare is unexpected. One accident, one mistake, one diagnosis, you're destroyed financially.
Yeah.
And then the 5th one is, you're gonna love this, procrastination.
Yeah.
People procrastinate their finances, their health, their whatever it is.
Yeah.
They just procrastinate. And another mentor, he said, what do you think is the most dangerous word in the English dictionary? It has to do with procrastination. Think about like self-talk. What do you think?
I mean, it has to be something along the lines of later.
That's it.
Yeah.
Later. The most dangerous word in the dictionary.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say either later or wait.
Yeah.
And I would say those are probably top 2.
So dangerous.
And yeah, and you know, I tell all my employees, I'm like, look, if the sentence of why we're not doing something has the word wait in it, or we're waiting, then you can only use that once. If we get to it again and we're still waiting, we need to take action somehow. Whether it's we need to elevate it, we need to, you know, move up the ladder, whatever we need to do. But if you have to use the word waiting in your excuse twice of why it's not happening, something needs action. And whether it's on your part, your boss's part, your mentor's part, you need to take action somehow.
Yeah.
What are we waiting on? And, even if you got to have hard conversations, what are we waiting on? Why are you waiting for that? Okay, you're waiting for who to make a decision? What information are they missing so they can make a decision? And then you force people who are procrastinating to get them that information. And procrastination all comes from the anxiety of something you either don't know or aren't prepared for. And so, I tell everybody, I was like, look, if somebody gives you a challenge and you're procrastinating about it, if it's because you don't have the information or don't have the knowledge, it makes you anxious. If it's below your capacity or your knowledge, you get bored. And so all those are reasons that you procrastinate. Look, this is below what I usually do, and I'm going to be bored with it, so I don't want to do it. Yeah. And so, or if it's like, I've been trying to do it, but I've been trying to get the courage to do it, but I don't know anything about it. And you're like, oh, well, that's easy. And then you get a subject matter expert, whether that be a book, a webinar, a person, whatever it is, and you put it in front of them. You educate them, and then the anxiety goes away. And so once the anxiety goes away, the procrastination should go away. And if it doesn't, okay, it's something else. What is it? Well, I'm not interested in it. That's the only other thing it could be. It's like, it just doesn't interest me. Okay, then don't worry about procrastinating about it. Just don't do it. Just say you're not going to do it, and then we make a decision from there. Okay, you're not going to do it, you're out. Or you're not going to do it, you're fired. Or you're not going to do it, whatever we decide that the consequences for that are, we're making that decision. So if the expectations have been set and we're just procrastinating about it, when we make that decision, or we're given the information, or we find out that, it's just boring, it's like, well, it's a requirement, and I know it's boring, and here's how I got over it, because it's boring to me too. If it's boring to you, it's probably boring to me. Right. And so, because I'm definitely way above that, but I still have to do it. Yeah. And you just have to find the fact that it's necessary. It doesn't have to be exciting, but it's necessary. And the faster you do it, and the faster you get it over with, then, it's like certifications for real estates or continuing education. Yeah. Everybody thinks, I don't need that. I know everything there is to know. Right. And you're like, doesn't matter. It's a requirement. And so if you don't want to do it, don't. But here's the consequences. You don't get to be a real estate agent anymore. And so when you put it to them that way, you're like, you just got to get it out of the way. Yeah. Like, so just start and give it 5 minutes and put a clock in front of you. 5 minutes. I'm going to give it 5 minutes. You get 5 minutes into it, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm into it. Right. And then you finish it. And it becomes as easy as that. And
it's usually a lot quicker than people expect also.
Yeah, it is. And
like the boring stuff goes by. It's like really, because I deal with that also. It's like, what's funny is I realize in business that the boring stuff is what makes the most money. Yeah. But once you do it, you're like, okay, that was 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Yeah. But what's an hour to, get it done, get prepared, get organized, get that all done with, and you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, and what's funny is it's kind of that way with everything is, if you think about any occupation, like, what's the bare minimum? And, they start talking about what the bare minimum is, or we tell them, you do this. When I was in sales, it was Mike, how do I sell this and just, I don't really care about making millions of dollars. I want to make $100,000 a year or whatever it was back then. And, just tell me 3 things I can do. And if you do these 3 things, you'll make sales. And I was like, okay, well, here's 5 things. Do 5 personal visits every day. Do 20 mailers every single day. Do 20 cold calls every single day. And there was one other one, I don't remember what it was, but you do those things every day and just do them. That's the bare minimum, and you'll sell one thing off. You'll sell one house, you'll sell one car, you'll sell one whatever, just off doing those things. And then when you get used to it and you see how easy it is, and you're like, yeah, I did all those things, I'm done by 2:00. Right. And you're like, okay, well, so are you going to leave at 2:00? Because this is a results-only work environment if you work for me. So if those are results you require, that's all I'm asking of you. Until somebody else comes along, we get a whole team of people that are not just doing the bare minimum, then you're costing me money. So you're adding stuff to the team now, but eventually you'll phase yourself out doing the bare minimum. And, people see when they do the bare minimum and they do the bare minimum things you ask, how easy it is.
Right.
And then how do you get paid for it? They're like, all right, I'm going to do 1.5 times that because it's so easy. And before you know it, you're getting it down. Then you're doing 3 times that much. And you're doing 4 times that much. Before you know it, you're the top producer because you're just doing these bare minimum things at an elevated level, which is all high performers are doing.
Right.
They're just doing the bare minimum things
more,
1,000 times.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten good at it and because they've gotten the system down to have it. And that's why it's like, you can focus on it and you can do it because you've seen that this is the difference between bare minimum and a high performer. We're doing these bare minimum things 50 times.
Yeah.
You're doing them 10. We're doing them 50. And, and then I'm doing them 50 and I'm really excelling. Along comes a guy, they hire the superstar. He's doing it 120 times. And you're like, 120? How do you find time for that? And he's like, oh, have you ever seen AI? And, all of a sudden these other tools come in and you're like, oh, I can't learn AI. Okay, well, 50 is your max then. And so, but you see 120 as a reality because you see somebody doing it. Well, then you see people that were doing 30 learn AI. Now they're doing 120.
Right.
Now you're not the top performer anymore. Now you're the bare minimum guy.
Yeah.
You're like, because you didn't want to learn this.
Yeah.
And so that's the evolution of it. And that's how high performers keep going. Somebody else comes along and says, dude, this way's better. And we'll take a day off from work and just cram all this information in and then start trying it. And we're like, oh, we're going to fail a few times. But, man, a week later, okay, we did 20 calls. Now we're using this AI. He's 120, I'm 160. And all of a sudden you're like, man, now I don't even have to be here. I've got it programmed where I don't even have to be here. I've got this thing doing it for me. And so, and that's the difference between the people who evolve, and that's the hardest part at 49. You're like, hey, Mike, some new technologies come along. I was like, I just barely learned to use my iPhone. And, and they're like, okay, well, use ChatGPT on your iPhone to make your text messages better to your customers, and you're like, well, how do I do that? And you're like, okay, just watch this course. And you're like, oh. But then for me, immediately, I'm like, even if I even feel that where I'm like, oh, I got to watch a course, I'm like, all I got to do is watch a course. I just remind myself that, no, this is it. This is how you learn. This is how you go to the next level. This is how you don't remain stagnant. Who cares if you're 49? Your brain's all there. You're right. You're in good shape. This is what you say you are. If you neglect that, you're not what you say you are.
Yeah.
And so, it makes it really, really difficult to fail once you get into that mentality. You're like, bring it on. What's new? And okay, I'm 55, and I got to learn AI at 55. It's like, yeah, if you want to keep working in this field, because if you don't, they're not. You can't keep up. You just can't keep up. And so, and that's just one example of kind of the evolution of it, of how it goes. Back in 2002, when I was teaching people how to sell stuff, and it's like, if you do that, you'll do it. And you had your superstars over here, your 20% selling 80% of your product. And then you had these 80% over here doing the bare minimum, but they still add to the total. And so you've got a space for those. But if you can get your whole staff doing that, we're only 20% of it, they're almost bringing us down by being here and just doing the bare minimum. It's almost not fair to even have you in the room. And so, that's what the highest performers and the best groups, that's what they have. They could do more. I mean, there's a ton of companies that could do more with me and you than the 15 employees they have.
Right.
Just because we're not going to stop and we're not going to be there, and we want to know what you want, what you know. And then once we know what you know, we want to know what our competitors know, and we want to know what's next, what's coming out next, and we want to get ahead of that. And so, I think that's the main thing that, we all say it. Everybody who talks about discipline and motivation what it takes to be successful, when you boil it down, there's some cool stories, and there's some loud deliveries, and there's some charismatic presentations. They're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, have the discipline to do what it takes to do it. And that's it. It's like there's a roadmap for it, and you just have to do it, and most people just won't.
What's funny is, like, what's the difference between a high performer and like a low performer, right? Because the high performer and low performer, the low performer has probably worked out. The low performer has probably made phone calls. He's ran some appointments. He's done some education, done some continued education. The low performer has done the same things a high performer has done.
Yeah.
Like, it's, what is it? Work out, read, make calls, provide customer service, education. The high performer just does it longer and more.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Yeah, and I think the high performers are not discouraged by no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think low performers get discouraged by no, especially if they get 10 in a row.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn, is my delivery off today? No, it's not off today. I just haven't talked to the right person. And so it's the same delivery I did yesterday. Let me change my voice. Let me stand up. Let me see, whatever it is. If we're failing, we're learning on every single call.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know that 11th, 12th, or 13th call is going to be the first of many that take it today. And so, for me, that's just the way it works now. It wasn't always that way. I had to learn this. I had to start somewhere. And, it was making my bed. And it was that one thing. It was like, no matter what, I'm going to do it every day. If I forget and I get a mile down the road and I remember, oh, shit, I didn't make my bed, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make my bed. And so I don't forget anymore. I'm going to go through the punishment of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to create those, a style of discipline that works for you, that makes you either feel like you have to do it or makes you want to do it. And when you start to see the success from the small things that you're doing and then the positive things that come into your life, it starts to change your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm a living example of that, because I thought it was all bullshit. It's like, yeah, okay, just because you're yelling at me and I need to have a positive attitude doesn't mean that that's all it takes is to be successful. And you're like, kind of is.
Yeah.
It kind of is. And, once you learn that, once you accept that and just, like, start cutting people out of your life that aren't good for you, man, it makes a huge, huge difference. And the universe rewards you 100% of the time.
What would you tell someone who's a low performer right now on how they can get from low performance to high performance? I know you kind of went into, like, you kind of broke it down right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between making a decision about what you want your life to look like, and then, you don't necessarily have to do it like somebody else, but, who's alive that did it in your mind the way you're thinking about doing it. And so if you're a low performer and you're like, well, I can think of 10 people who woke up at 10, worked until 1, and didn't really do anything, and a bunch of opportunities just fell in their lap. Like, those people don't exist. Like, you can imagine that it would exist, and you can, because they see these overnight successes that, this just happened overnight for this guy, and they don't see, us sitting here talking about this and what we're going to do and all that stuff. If I make $100 million, and it's because of something big and it's because of something I invested in, people are like, oh, Mike just stumbled across this, and, he was nothing 10 years ago when I knew him. Well, they don't see, like, the education we put ourselves through and the things how many times we've lost, and, how many nights we've walked out of here at 11 o'clock at night and being like, oh, and you got to be up at 5 o'clock the next morning. And
right.
They don't know how many concrete pours I've done at 2 a.m. and then I have to stay through the next day, and then something else happens and I have to stay till 2 a.m. the next night. And, before you know it, you're working for 36 hours straight. They don't see any of that. They just, in their mind. But if you can think of someone who did it, and then you can contact that person and say, hey, man, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
And they can tell you, or there's a formula for it, then do what they did.
Yeah.
But those people just don't exist. That's in your brain about how you think they got rich just by, he just stumbled onto something, or he just, there's no such thing as, they didn't work for it, or they didn't put in the hours, or they didn't, there's very, very few. And if they are, they always seem to be really short gains. Like, I stumbled onto this thing, and that was 20 years ago, and that's the one win I had. I don't have any of it anymore, but, I went through my whole life. I spent that because I just thought I'd keep stumbling onto these things, and you don't.
Yeah.
If you do stumble onto it, it's an accident, and it happens. And if that's how you think you're going to keep stumbling onto them, you're going to keep investing, and you're going to keep failing. You're going to invest in something, and you're going to fail because you're like, no, I'll trip over something, again here pretty soon.
Get lucky again.
Look up 15 years later, and you're broke, and you're like, hey, what do I do now? You go to work. It's the things you should have been doing when you had $1 million in the bank, and you just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And that million could be 10 million or 50 million or whatever now. And I just think that you have to figure out what you want your life to look like, and try to find the people that are living the way you want to live, and then just say, hey, what'd you do? And I think you'll be shocked. I think they'll be shocked at this is what it takes, and because it looks easy. I met a guy recently. He's from DFW, and it's a great story. And I think it was just 5 or 6 years ago. He got out of prison after 7 years, manslaughter charge. While he was in prison, he's thinking of these ways he's going to make money, because he's like, I'm going to be rich, and if I got to be a gangster to do it, that's what I'm going to do. And he was thinking about ways to steal motorcycles, and I'm gonna steal 1,000 motorcycles and ship them overseas, and make $1 million that way. And and then you got to change his mindset, and he's basically a builder and developer now. And dude, this dude is, he sells workbooks, and he sells this is how you develop property, and he sells these things now, and he builds in Highland Park, and and he's 5 or 6 years out of prison with nothing.
Wow.
Same as me. And his name's Eric Crutchfield. I mean, look him up. I think it's Epic Eric or something like that. But dude, he drives a McLaren. He's got a Mercedes Sprinter van that's all decked out, and a driver, and that's how he drives from house to house, so he can be working the whole time. And and his lifestyle is, he's like, this is what I want my lifestyle to be. When he figured out he could do it legally, and this is how you do it, he flipped a house, made $50,000 off of it, didn't spend any of it on himself, and this dude, he's having to start over, immediately reinvest that into something else. And then somebody came along, saw how dedicated he was, helped him for a little while, and then after a couple of years, he didn't need the dude's help anymore. And now, he's making $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a house, and building 10, 15 houses a year. And and now he's teaching other people how to do this, and he'll do a seminar, he'll make $500,000 or $600,000 off a seminar. And dude, it's just there's people like that are out there. And Eric, I would love to get him in here to do your podcast, because dude,
I would love that.
He's so good. He's such a nice, just laid back dude. And dude, tattooed from the back of his head to his toes, and drives around town in his McLaren, and is just unapologetic that I'm fucking rich, and I'm doing exactly what I said I would do. I am who I say I am, and so he has nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of. And he's like, fuck it, y'all don't like it, be poor, I don't give a fuck. but he is such a great dude. And yeah, man,
he's authentic.
It's just a great dude. And his girlfriend's like a high-powered real estate agent, and they're just and they're both good, extremely good looking. So he's just one of those guys that he's always had it. It just took that, like it did me, where it was like, dude, I definitely don't want this lifestyle, so where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And it's just a changing of your mindset, deciding how you want to be, and then when you become free of the old mindset that was holding you back, when you become free of that, the possibilities are endless. And then you're like, man, I want to live like him. So what did you do? And Eric is gifting that to people, in my opinion, that, even though he charges for it, I mean, he's gifting people
right
this, because real estate development is not a joke, man. It's a skill you got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But once you learn it, man, you can make money on that for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter what the market is. When the market's bad, you take advantage of the market. When you're a developer, you start gaining assets and all this stuff. The market goes back up. You start selling them off. You have millions of dollars that, you weren't expecting to have. And, real estate development is one of those things where you'll push through. You'll make a little bit. And then you'll get an opportunity to, make a lot. And then you see, like, okay, now the deals are bigger. And the bigger the deals get in real estate, the more risk there is. But, the more money you make. And so, he's one of those guys that, I met him and I went to one of his, a friend of mine was speaking at one of his workshops. She does hard money loans. So she was speaking at one of his workshops, and I got to go and just listen and meet him and talk to him a little bit. And I was like, yeah, we have kind of the same story. And he was like shocked. He's like, oh my God, there's another one of us that, is doing it and is making it. And and he's newer than I am, but it was about the same time that he was out that I started like rolling also. It was 5 or 6 years out that, I was just like, I was dedicated. I was pushing and I wasn't stopping, and nobody could tell me no. And if you were negative, you're out of my life.
Yeah.
6 years in, man, I was a black belt. I was a millionaire. I was like, okay, let the opportunities keep coming. And they did, man. They just started piling up, and it's doing the same thing for him now. And, and he's even bigger. He's way bigger than I was at that point. So, and he's going to keep going. So he's a good example of somebody, if you say it can't be done, all the cards just have to, I did almost 3 years. He did 7 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was even worse off, but, he's made it great, man. There's a handful of guys out there like him, and like me that have done it. But not many, man. It's a not just the fact of breaking out of a cycle that you were in just in life itself, but having that kind of setback and having that kind of monkey on your back that you think most people think is going to be a detriment to your future.
Yeah. And
it's only a detriment to your future if, I always had the mindset, and I know Eric does too. He's like, my character is going to outshine whatever it says I did on this piece of paper 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I've made sure that that's always been the case. If somebody finds out, I was like, yeah, look at me now. I was like, look, we're helping people. We're contributing to society, and we're getting rich doing it. So who cares? It was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I wouldn't change a thing. And, there are people that have had to do less and go through less that have more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really compare myself to them. I don't compare myself to anybody. It's like, I'm after what I'm chasing, and, the path is clear ahead of me. I just need the time to get there. The more I do now, the faster it comes to me. And so, I know he's got that same mindset. So he's a really cool dude to get to know. And if you can get him, as a matter of fact, if you reach out to him, I guarantee you he would. As a matter of fact, I'll reach out to him for you. But
yeah, put us in a group chat.
Yeah, I'll put you in a.
We can do a 3-way podcast.
Yeah, it's he's one of those guys, man. That's just if I was gonna go into prisons and talk to people, and I could take one person with me, it'd be him. And so, yeah, and we're not like close friends or anything. We just became acquainted through a mutual friend, and it's impressive seeing what he's doing, because you always think, you're like, man, these guys are just, this is what they show on social media, but their life isn't really that way.
Yeah.
His is.
Yeah.
and he's one of the few that it is. So it's really cool to see.
That's what I love about like stories, because there's always someone out there that did more with less.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have no excuse to not go out and get it, because you're an example, Eric's an example of someone who had all the cards down, way worse than myself or maybe some of the other people I'm associated with. So we have an advantage. So you can't tell me that it's not possible when there's people that had way less and they're doing so much more.
Yeah. I mean, God, I forget his name, but what's the guy's name from Will Smith played him in a movie?
Pursuit of Happiness?
Yeah, Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah. I forgot his name too.
Yeah, so, but that guy, I mean, when I'm watching that movie, I'm like, God, you know, sleeping in the bathroom with his son in the subway and just, but you couldn't convince that guy he wasn't going to make it.
Right.
And, you know, no matter what, nothing, because things kept happening to him and kept happening to him and kept happening to him. And, you know, the part where he had to give his boss $5 and he was like, that was his last $5, but he did it because he didn't want to tell him, he's like, man, this is my last $5. He wanted them to feel like, hey, I'm one of you. And so he didn't say it, but he knew it would come back to him if he did that.
Yeah.
And not just in the $5. You know, he knew that when I do this, it's going to come back. And, you know, to me, even though he wasn't in jail, that guy had it, you know, at least whenever I got out, I had a family and I could go live with them and I had a bed and, you know, at least that. And, you know, I didn't have kids to worry about. I didn't have any of that. And I just couldn't fathom sleeping like in a janitor's closet with my 8-year-old son or whatever he was. And I couldn't fathom that. That would be just, you know, I don't know. That might break most people. Yeah. I'm sure it would break most people. But guys like that, man, I think about it all the time. Like, he did it.
There's all his mindset.
No reason why I can't do it. So it's good to have reminders like that no matter how bad you have it, you know, this guy had it worse.
100%.
And look what he did. So I love that kind of shit.
Yeah. How was tell me about your week, man. What got us to the point where you're losing the voice a little bit? Man,
at the end of the year, people are trying to dump money. People are trying to, you know, they're trying to put money in places that they, you know, they made an extra $3 million this year they weren't expecting. So, like, hey, man, I need to invest this somewhere so I can defer that tax money to another year when I can dilute it somewhere. Let me give it to you for your project. And, you know, you got to be careful about that. It allures a lot of people, but you got to remember it's hard money. There's 12% interest on that, and there's a monthly payment due on it. As soon as you take it, a month later, you know, an interest payment's due, and then the whole amount's due in a year. And can you pay back $3 million in a year? And, you know, and you like to think yes, but, you know, you got to resist the temptation to take it. And then also, if you need it, you got to figure it out and you got to have a plan for it. And so it's two things. It's that, and it's like, you know, people asking me and then asking, do I know anyone where, you know anybody that's got a project they need money for? And sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, and sometimes I connect people and, you know, and then it's on them. But a lot of what it has been lately has been people pitching me to do for some businesses that, dude, I'm really excited about. And, you know, but, you know, I'm not a guy that, you know, because I have been burned, because I have lost, and because I have had some things, I'm one of those guys that's like, hey, Mike, I need money, but I need an answer now. And if you ever pitch me like that, if you need an answer now, the answer is no. So, but if we have even a little bit of time, like, okay, I don't know that much about this, so I need you to educate me on it. Show me where my money's going, what are we using it for, and then what do I get for it? Because I don't really care how much something costs. I care about the value it brings me.
Right.
So If it costs me $1 million and it brings me $100,000 in value, it's a bad investment. But if it costs me $100,000 and it brings me $1 million in value, okay, now we're talking. But that sounds too good to be true.
Right.
Tell me how it's true. And, you know, if they're like, I can't, but I promise, but I need an answer. Okay, the answer is no. And so, you know, as you get these at the end of the year, you know, I don't know why, but a lot of people have these. I don't know why people come up with this, but they work on it. They had an idea at the end of last year that they're working on, learning, educating themselves, and now it's the end of the year, and they're like, I want to do it. I want to launch it. You know, my goal was to have it out January 1st or January 5th or in January or whatever, because my New Year's resolution is to this and this and this. And people are like, you know, need people to invest in these companies. And sometimes I've been along for the ride just for information purposes. And then you're like, you know, and it's pretty easy. You're like, I'm willing to give you this for this amount, and then that's it. And then you negotiate a little bit, and then that's the limits of what you'll give.
Mm-hmm.
So most of it that I've been talking so much and losing my voice is listening to these things and listening to these subject matter experts on this. And, you know, AI is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you know, if you're getting in on AI, you're still on the front end of it because it's still brand new. And so some of the stuff I'm investing in is AI stuff. And it's really exciting. And it's, you know, AI and kind of these e-learning and webinar-based learning systems, we're getting into it pretty heavy in the first quarter. And, you know, we're like, we're going to do these in the first 3 months, the first quarter of the year. And if they work, then great. Then we're going to keep doing them. If they don't work, you know, this is our investment. This is how much I'm willing to lose on it. And so, you know, it's basically one of those things where like you're in it with a team, but you're investing in yourself because, you know, I'm a subject matter on 2 things and, you know, maybe 3. And, you know, there's such a broad range of things that people are good at that, you know, people want to be good at, or like real, like useful information. Like we're doing a webinar for parents with special needs kids. And if we're going to teach them how to be their own advocate to a school district for what the school district is supposed to be providing for their child because they have special needs. And, you know, usually especially in Texas, usually if you have a kid like that and your district isn't providing you with services that they're supposed to provide you based on the disability of your child, they owe you compensatory services or something like that. And if you want to learn that, you have to go hire an attorney.
Yeah.
And the attorney becomes the advocate for it. And the attorney goes and fights the school district for these things. But they may have been owing you these things since they were in kindergarten, and now they're in 5th grade or 8th grade or, you know, whatever. And somebody's got to do that. So we're going to offer, you know, a webinar you can buy these workbooks. They're like $1,000, but it's all you need to know about the laws of your state and how to advocate for your own child, what the school districts are required to give you, and then twice a month, a live webinar with a subject matter expert in that area where you can ask them questions, give them scenarios. You'll be able to email in. They'll cover your scenario, or they'll email you back directly. And then, you know, so things like that where it's not just, this is how you be successful, because that's the thing, but it's real useful information that you have to buy, but then you have it forever. And it's an ebook. So as the laws update, so does your ebook.
Wow.
And so so you'll have it, and then you have access to these subject matters or these experts, you know, for the duration. And then there's memberships you can pay for that you'll have even more access to these people where you don't have to hire attorneys. You know, you can buy this ebook for $1,000, and then you can get in these webinars for $10, or you can pay a membership for $30 a month to be in this in this group, and this information's constantly going back and forth. They're constantly updating it, and then we hire the subject matter experts that are constantly updating this, and then of course they get commission based off how often you want to get on here and answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you want to get on here? Let's do a 90-minute webinar, and these people are going to pay $10 to get on here and ask you questions. You're going to answer as many of them as you can. Some of the questions they're going to send in before. Some you're going to send back the answer. Some you're going to answer live. And if there's 400 people on there or 4,000 people on there, you get a percentage of those people that have called in, and so they might be able to make $10,000 or $15,000 off a 90-minute webinar just for being a subject matter expert. The downside of that is you got to be right, because if they go in there and they're like, no, that's not right, and then they show you the law and they're like, oh yeah, that's not right. Then we go back to the subject matter experts and be like, hey, we're finding that these guys are saying you're not right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we either say, all right, you're not really an expert,
Mm-hmm.
and we're vetting these people beforehand, but it's going to be things like that. And that's eventually what it's going to evolve into. But, we're doing some of that e-learning stuff and ebook and e-webinar stuff that we're doing. And there's an AI part of it that's doing the marketing for it. But it's, we didn't want to just do what everybody's doing about, let's sell a dream. It's like, we're going to do that too, but we're also going to sell some actual, stuff that people can use and that is actually valuable. And, how many people have special needs kids that can't afford, $1,000 for an attorney or whatever it costs them just for them to go to this ARD meeting or, whatever it is. So there's some things like that we're working on that I've asked probably 15,000 questions just this week about how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? And so that's the reason I'm in the condition I'm in.
Is it just with special needs that y'all are doing this educational platform? So
that's just one example.
Yeah.
We're going to do it on everything. I thought of you because I was like, we'll get guys to come in here and do webinars on life insurance, on health insurance, on, ghostwriting, just all these things we're gonna do that are people that want to pursue these things, or people that are retired that want to learn how to do like a second gig. That's like, I was a subject matter expert on this. And we even thought about broader subjects like, okay, you want to be a professional at operations. Well, let's break that down into construction operations and, tech operations. And, how do I become a better executive? How do I become a better, how do I learn these things that the executives seem to know that I don't know? What are the metrics that they know that I don't know? Just things like that we're going to kind of dabble into. And then the audience will tell us what's next. They'll be like, dude, a subject matter expert on this that's what we want to hear. And if we hear 5,000 people say that, we're going to start writing a curriculum. We're going to start writing an ebook. We're going to start, have the subject matters experts. They're not really writing a book. They're writing a workbook. Like, here's the things we're talking about. Here's the things you got to hit on. Here's where to find the information that you want to educate yourself on. These are credible sources. This is what you want to listen to. This is what you want to avoid. And then, things like that. So it's really just steering people in the right direction so that they're not just rabbit holing, and like, they come out and like, all right, I've decided the earth is flat. And because, I was starting out like, what's the temperature in space? And all of a sudden they're like, all right, I'm a flat earther now, because they rabbit holed this thing. And we're like, no. Pay attention. You wanted to know what the temperature was in space. You still don't know. And so that's what you really needed to know. And this stuff, avoid it. If you want to, that's a hobby. This is what you make money on. And so, or maybe not even what you make money on, but what you save money on, what you don't have to spend your money on.
Yeah.
And I think this is the way that, subject matter experts are going to be more and more, where they can just go on and be like, hey, what's the law on, compensatory services for a kid with Down syndrome in Texas. And AI is going to be able to tell you, here's the laws. There might be 100 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask it about a subcategory, and then it breaks it down for you, and then eventually it'll tell you. That's the future.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that's the part that you want the platform for, because before it gets to that, somebody will buy it from us.
Mm-hmm.
And, anything that's successful that has to do with something that's on the edge of technology, the exit plan is do it and make it so good that you're the standard for it, and then people will buy it. And then much smarter people with much more horsepower and money and all these things, they'll make it even better.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it'll be as close to perfect as it can get.
Have you ever heard of the app called Monect?
I don't think so.
So Monect is it's kind of different, but what you're talking about, but it's so if I was to reach out to, let's say, John Jones on Instagram, he's probably not going to respond.
Yeah.
So Monect is an app where you can pay someone for a minute of their time to connect. So it has like a 99.9% response rate, to where I could reach out to like John Jones, ask him like a question, and then whatever his fee is, he'll either give me a voice note, a response, or I can do like a 15-minute video conference. So I think it might be good for you to get on there, because you have you have a credibility, you have established yourself, so it's like people could pay you for minutes or moment of your time. But that was just a thought that came out. What are you doing in 2025 that's different than what you did in 2024?
I am not a tech guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2025, everything I invested in 2024 were things that I had control over and that I could put my hands on. And in 2025, I've decided, I was like, okay, I can only do so many things like that.
Yeah. Before
long, you're putting your hands on all these things, and you look up and you're neglecting all of them in some way. And so I was like, okay, I got enough that I'm putting my hands on. I'm going to put this in some other people's hands that are experts. I'm just going to do my homework, and then I'm going to invest what I feel comfortable losing, and I'm going to let other people take the wheel. And, if I'm only making 10% off this, and they're doing $25,000 a month, if I invest $10,000 to make $2,500 a month for eternity, then it's worth it. And so, it's just, are they people that are going to put in the work? Are they people that are going to, are they dedicated to this? What have they done so far that has that proves to me that they want this as bad as they're telling me they do? If they want my $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, what have they put in? Am I paying for this whole thing?
Right. Where's their skin in the game?
Yeah. What's their skin in the game? If I'm putting all the cash in, how long have you been working on this? If this is something you came up with last month, no. But if you've been working on this for 5 years and you're like, I've got all this together, I can answer every question, I can overcome every objection, all I need is your $100,000. Okay, now we're talking. There's some substance there. You've put in the time, you've put in the effort. Now it's just, this is how much it cost me. How much value does it bring me? What's the potential for it? What's the risk? What's the that's the difference that I've decided to do this year. And that's why I've taken on these things. I've just kind of opened myself up to, hey, I'm willing to invest in some of these things. Don't come to me if you've got an idea that, all I need is $10,000 and, and then I'll write it down for you. Like, no. If you've put time in, if you've done this, and it's not with strangers, it's with people that I know. And it's, it's like people last year were telling me, I want to talk to you this year about it. And, because I'm not ready yet. And so, when people tell me those things, I write them down, or I put a note in my calendar. I'll put a reminder in my calendar. If you told me today, hey, dude, talk to me next year, I got something I want to talk to you about, it would be in my calendar.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, Ara, what's this thing you were working on last year?
Yeah.
You want to talk to me next year about? Sometimes it's like, oh, I already launched it, man. It's uber successful and, whatever. And I was like, oh, I stopped working on it. Or they're like, oh, I don't remember. And you're like, oh, okay. But it's at least worth it to do it. That's what I did last year. And, You know, people are like, they tell me all through the year, hey, I've been working on this. I'm not quite ready for you yet. And then you see them on social media and they're going to these things and you're like, what are they up to? What are they?
Mm-hmm.
And so then they finally break it to you. You know, we're all business guys. So they know if they told me 6 months ago and I thought they were fizzling out, I'm going to pick your idea up if I thought it was a good idea and I'm going to start running with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so people who are serious about it and who have been mentored properly, they know are like, even though me and Mike are cool, I'm not going to tell him what my deal is until I'm well into it. I've done enough legwork where he can't catch up to me in a week. And, you know, to catch up to these guys, I'd have to, you know, work for a year to catch up with them. By that time, their shit's launched a year into the evolution of perfecting it. So that means I'm that much further away from it. And so, you know, I'll let people do the legwork and I'll let people do the dirty work and I'll let people kind of feel into it. And, you know, if they're like, I just want a small investment because I'm only willing to give up a small part, I'm like, okay. And, you know, sometimes those are better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they sell one of these things for $200 million and I own 10% of it because I put $15,000 in it when it was an idea, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty good deal for me.
Yeah.
And I don't actually have to do it. There's, you know, I'm doing some of the webinars, I'm doing some of that, but that's the stuff I enjoy doing. Like if they were like, yeah, but you got to build this AI platform yourself. And I'd be like,
yeah,
no, I'm out on that, man. I was like, I'll leave that to the experts, but you know, we've got those people and and we didn't just hire those people. We hired the people who are the best at it in the world and who have many accolades and who have, you know, the people that we've talked about in this podcast, they're using them. And so, you know, and that's what the money's for mostly is like, you want to do it. You say you want to bite it off and you want to throw yourself into this. Here's what it costs to use the best guys in the world. And they're excited about it.
right.
And so they're like, okay, well, this is if they're excited about it because, you know, you've listened to them before, you've talked to them on this other guy had a deal. And we talked to this same guy. He's like, man, I'm telling you, you're spinning your wheels here because there's already people doing this. You're too far behind on this. But on this, you're like, you're on the right track and I'm excited about this. Here's my fee. And you're like, whew. So I'm responsible for half the fee and I get 25% of the company. So that kind of stuff is exciting to me. It's also scary, but that's how I know it's a good opportunity. I'm excited about it and I'm scared. Not that I'm not investing more than I'm afraid of losing because I know what the reality is of investing. It's just like a stock. You know, you're investing in a company, which is people. This is the same thing. You're investing in a company.
Yeah.
It's just new. It's people.
Yeah.
And will they do what they say they're going to do? And if not, how do you supplement that? Do you have a plan? And so even if you do, or even if you don't, you're like, there's no backup plan. I'm willing to lose this amount. What do I get for that? And that's what I did. So, you know, throw a few more irons in the fire. And if they work out, I'll have another 10, 15, 20,000 a month coming back to me from, you know, very minimal investment as far as I'm concerned. So that's what I would suggest everybody do is think about where you want to be in 2026 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then put that in your head so that you're looking for the opportunities to be that and for those opportunities to come along. And this is what I did last year. And I'm being showered with them. And it's amazing.
Let me do a time check. Yeah, 1:37. Okay, cool. What else is on your mind, man? What's been weighing heavy on your mind wrapping up this year?
Nothing really. I mean, you know, I'll say it again. Like, I don't have bad days ever. And so, and in the last 60 days, I've had a few bad days. I've had a few days where I was like, oh, you know, what am I doing this for? But it lasted 15 minutes. And so, but it's been 15 years since I've had a single day where I had thoughts like that. And so, and it was because what we talked about earlier is like, you know, you're vulnerable, you write a book about it, you're trying to help the masses, and that's what it's doing. But there's a small group of people, and some of them are close to you, and some of them you cared a lot about, and they're using those things against you. And, you know, it's hurtful because you don't want to think that somebody you cared about would do something like that to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's just not the reality. It's just, I don't think necessarily people are in it. I don't think they're against you always, but I think 100% of the time they are for themselves. And so, but that doesn't mean they have to be against you. They're like, I'm just trying to make my life better. And if making you look bad makes me look better, then that's what I have to do right now. Because if I looked any worse, my life keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And so that's been weighing a little bit heavy on me too. But, you know, I've got a great group of friends and a great group of mentors. And, you know, every day I just think about, I have a vision board. It's digital now. You know, it used to be cutting up magazines and pinning them on a cork board. It's digital now. And so when I wake up and I look up, that's usually what wakes me up because it turns on.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, ugh. And, you know, I look up and it's one of the pictures and it's a pile of cash, or it's a, you know, it's me standing in front of a jet, or it's me, you know, up on stage with a microphone in my hand, just telling me that, you know, you're doing the right thing. People are listening. And it's those things that, you know, it doesn't take me very long if I'm in a bad mood or if I have a negative thought for me to snap out of it, because there's just so many good things going on that, you know, but it's always in the back of your mind that, like, just because you don't deserve it and just because you, you know, are doing the right things doesn't mean bad things won't happen to you. It doesn't mean something won't be held against you, or, you know, it doesn't mean that people won't try to hurt you. And, you know, you want to think that, you know, being a good person puts this veil around you that makes you, you know, I'm one of God's children. What do you mean? And, you know, you're like, I'm still being tested.
Right.
I'm still, you know, are you what you say you are, Mike? Because you're about to have these huge opportunities. These big things are about to be dumped in your lap. I'm going to test you. I'm going to see if you are what you say you are. And so that's just all that keeps going through my mind. And, you know, and if they are not having those same conversations with themselves, then that's why it's happening the way it's happening. And so it's like, they think that, you know, it would be like me. I would be more successful if I came in here and stole R's money. That makes me more successful.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. And, you know, and you would probably even hand it to me just to watch me go out the door. It's like, hey, R, I'm going to take all your money. You're like, no, you don't have to take it here, but go. And then I'm out of your life. And whatever you got in your pocket, $300, $400, that's what it costs you to never have to deal with somebody who comes into the room and takes your money, or, you know, or bullies you, or makes you feel like your dreams are not validated. You know, whatever it costs you, it's worth it.
Right.
And so just, you know, I say this all the time. My birth mother, when I tried to have a relationship with her, it lasted about 6 weeks. And she told me I owed her $300. No, of course, I didn't owe her $300, but I took her the $300, and I've never talked to her since.
Wow.
And, you know, so my mindset was, it cost me $300 to never have to deal with that again. And so, and that's the way I look at everybody. And that's why I don't loan money. It's like, look, I'm going to give you the money. And if you feel the need to pay it back, then good. But if you don't, I don't want to be mad at you. I don't want to hold it against you. But if you borrow money from me and don't pay it back, you're out of my life. Keep it. You're out of my life. And if I think you're going to do that to me, I won't loan you anything. You know, if you say, hey, I need $500, what do you need it for? I'm in some trouble. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you $100.
Yeah.
And, you know, just go do what you got to do or whatever. Try to get $100 from 5 other people. But
Right.
I'm not giving you $500. And so, you know, it's just the mindset that I have and that I've had for the last 15 years. And so, and I've been, on top of that, I've been thinking of ways like, what could I have done better, and how could I have handled this better? And, a year ago when when I was dealing with this, how could I have handled it better? And, it's just beating yourself up a little bit over that, and, and thinking of ways you could have done it better. And it's not just that, I think about that all the time. If I failed at something or if I overlooked something, I think of it from an operation standpoint. What step can I put in place to make sure that this mistake doesn't happen again? Like, what's a vetting process, or what do I do? What do I need to add to the flow chart to make sure that if I do this step, this wouldn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
And then you put it in, you implement it, you do it 5 or 10 times. Now it's a habit, and you won't make that mistake anymore. And so I've been doing a lot of that lately at the end of the year here. And so, just getting ready for, I've had some downtime. We had our last show December 12th, I think. So that was the last show of the year. And we have Fury 100 coming up January 12th. And, it's a big one, and it's a big show, and they had us custom suits made and all this stuff for it. So, kind of just looking forward to that. It's the 100th show, and then I'm going on vacation for 10 days and 10 or 12 days. And so I'm just kind of looking forward to that. And I've just been thinking about, all right, I'm doing all this stuff. It's time I got a little bit of downtime. I'm going to enjoy it. It's time to get busy again. So as soon as the new year turns, and I'm busy every day, but as soon as the new year turns, it goes back to, whatever it takes. That's how long I'm there.
And Fury 101 is in Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming off of the big 100.
Yeah.
When is it? Is it February?
February 7th.
February 7th.
Yeah, we're here in Dallas. A Friday night show at Gillys again. And you better be there.
Oh, I'm going to be there. I'm definitely going to be there.
Yeah, the Dallas cards are always really good, man. They're, the crowd is always really into it. And, Fortis MMA is here. He always has a stable of fighters on the card. So it always sells out. And when there's a lot of local fighters, and, the Dallas Fort Worth crowd, especially Fort Worth, it's always been, well.
Did you hear what happened to Fort Worth recently?
What's that?
Fort Worth has surpassed the 4th largest city in Texas.
Yeah, and I tell everybody this on that note. Fort Worth is the best kept secret in the country.
Yeah.
I think we're the 11th largest city in the whole country.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that. Like, nobody would even think Fort Worth is even in the top 100, but we're the 11th or 12th largest city in the country. And, when you go to Fort Worth, I love Fort Worth, and when you're there, it feels like a small town. It feels like, just there's a few prominent families there that really do a good job of taking care of the city. If the city can't come up with the money to do it, these families do it. And so Fort Worth is just one of those cities that never lacks because of the people in it. They back the city, and whatever the city can't do, and whatever the citizens can't provide, there's 3 or 4 prominent families, and the Bass family being the main one. But they provide for Fort Worth, and it's a beautiful city. It's clean, and crime is relative to
Fort Worth is very clean.
Yeah, and I just think it's the best kept secret in the country.
Where can people find you out? What do you got going on? What can we promote for closing out?
Man, Fury 100 is coming up January 12th. You can catch it on UFC Fight Pass. And then pay attention. The UFC is coming on hard to the grappling scene. And there's 6 events planned, big events planned for 2025 at the UFC Apex. But, they're also thinking about traveling to Brazil and a couple other places to do some of these shows. And the grappling world is about to get taken over by the UFC. And it's just it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The events keep getting better and better. So watch for that in 2025. You're going to see some big promotion, especially on the pay-per-views. See some big promotion for these grappling events, and pay attention to it. The grapplers are, they're making some money, and they're on the scene now. There's big events coming, and super excited to be part of it. And then I'm just gonna keep calling fights, man, and keep, every year I've had more and more viral ring interviews.
Right.
And now it's almost like, now I have fighters be like, man, if I win, I'm telling you, we're gonna have an interview that goes viral. I'm like, all right. And so I've gotten to where I go to each locker room before the shows, and I'm like, look, guys, this is your opportunity to get people's attention. You think going viral, and you think these ring interviews, whether it's for a positive or negative reason, whatever it is, whether it's you talking shit to somebody, or if it's you just so happy, you're ecstatic, and you're kind of over the top, but show your personality. Whether you're a heel or a hero, show it. And because they need both. But get up there, don't be just a bump on a log. Show your personality, and let's get you noticed. And so, I think it has a lot to do with kind of how people act whenever they get to the ring interview, especially when they win in devastating fashion. It's harder for them if they win by decision to talk a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm.
You get a flying knee or a one-punch knockout, dude, they can't wait to get on there. And so I expect I'll have some more viral interviews. We had a ton of people get signed to the UFC from the Dana White Contender Series that are going to be a force. We already have some. Diego Lopez got Fighter of the Year or Newcomer of the Year. He came from us. Joshua Van is 5-1 in the UFC now, and he came from us. He's our bantamweight champion. And Jacoby Smith, watch out for him, man. At 155 or 170 pounds, that dude is a monster wrestler out of Oklahoma State. And his one of his best friends and his teammates at Oklahoma State, he hasn't been signed yet, but he will be. His name's Nick Piccinini. He's a 125er, absolute animal. Cody Steele just got signed. Cody Steele was only 5-0 or 6-0 when he went to Contender Series. Fought a really high-level prospect at the Contender Series and finished him. And, Cody Steele's a world-class jiu-jitsu guy, and his striking is unbelievable now. Zach Reese, who is a stud at 185, has fought 3 or 4 times. He lost once. He got slammed and got knocked out in Austin off the slam. But since then, I think his longest fight's like a minute. I mean, it's crazy. And so, and there's more guys up and coming. Mansour Kira. There's a Paris Moran. There's a bunch of guys. Justice Torres. That are Michael Aswell. These guys are coming up from the regional scene, and it's not just us. There's Cage Fury and LFA and all these guys. Man, they're putting guys into the UFC also, and there are some absolute studs. We're starting to see the wave of kids who started training when they were 10 years old, and that's all they've done. They could have played football, they could have played baseball, but they chose to fight. They chose to learn jiu-jitsu. They chose to do MMA from the time they were 12 years old, 10 years old, some even younger. You're starting to see the MMA guys that are just good at everything, and they're 20 years old, they're 19 years old, and they're just, man, there's just I could go on and on. Lester Botras Jr., Sebastian Oyervides, Damian Anderson, Demon Hands Damian Anderson. I think he's 28 years old. This dude, I guarantee you this dude could be 2/3 of the bantamweight roster on the UFC right now. He's just a stud. So, and I'm lucky to get to call these guys fights, and I get to know them. So when they are superstars in UFC, we still like, hey man, what's up? And and they are legit superstars just waiting to happen. All those names I said are the future. John Jones is going to retire soon. I think he's going to fight Tom Aspinall. I think it's going to be the biggest pay-per-view in history. And then I think Diego Lopez has the potential to break that eventually. Mm-hmm. I think Josh Van has that kind of potential. I just think Cody Steele has that kind of potential. Jacoby definitely has that kind of potential. Wait till you see this dude. He's a wrestler, and usually, they have like this boring style. He has the most barbaric, chaotic, just violent style of anyone I've ever seen as far as a wrestler goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the closest thing I can compare him to is Khabib. And just he's that good of a wrestler, and he is that violent. And Jacoby is also that cocky, where he'll be the one like, you know, what was that shit you were talking? Bow. Say it now. Bow. He's one of those guys. And he has got one punch knockout power that is just, I mean, he is one of those lights out guys that, you know, when he's coming in, people might be like, I don't know, he's a little short for the weight class. Dude, he will kill you. He will knock you out. And if he can't knock you out, he will wear you out and he will ground and pound you to death. And I mean, it's devastating to watch. And it's like, it's one of those, it's like his fights are painful to call because you're like, oh my God. I mean, I don't know, just remember that name, Jacoby Smith. I would say him, Cody Steele, you know, a couple of those guys as far as like devastating, and Damian Anderson, as far as like they're there and they're superstars. They just got to get on the pay-per-views.
Yeah.
So, and Jacoby and Cody are already signed to the UFC. They're waiting on their first matchups. And they'll be pay-per-view guys too. And then Damian Anderson, he'll get signed any day now. I expect he'll have one, maybe two more fights. And, you know, and he's finishing his guys very, very quickly. And the thing about Damian, he's a world-class jiu-jitsu guy, and he's picking specialists. Like 2 fights ago, set me up with a professional boxer, and he outboxed the boxer in round 1, beat him up in round 2, took him down, submitted him. The last fight, set me up with a kickboxer, professional kickboxer, 3-0 or 5-0 kickboxer, world-class kickboxing. Damian out kickboxed him. Took him down second round, submitted him. Just to show, hey, I'm not just a grappler.
Yeah.
I can outclass these, you know, these guys that are specialists in their specialty, and then just take them down, submit them whenever I want. So,
dang,
1 or 2 more fights, Damian Anderson will be there also, and it's I mean, I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing to watch. Like Josh Van, I called his first or second amateur fight. Watched him win the amateur title, watched him go pro, called every single fight he fought all the way through pro, including his title fight. Was there, you know, the next day after I did his ring interview, he was signed to the UFC. And so, you know, it just can happen that fast.
You're watching people grow up.
Yeah. You're watching them grow up. You're watching them, you know, achieve their dreams. You're watching them do these ring interviews and tell people what they're going to be, and then they are.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. That's the most fulfilling part, you know, other than I just love watching fights, and I get to sit right there and watch it right in front of me.
Yeah.
And talk about it. And, you know, that which is awesome. But the best part is seeing guys like Jacoby and Cody and Damian and Josh and even Diego, who lost the first fight I ever called of his, which was Fury FC 47.
Wow.
And Damian and Diego lost. And I think he was undefeated. And he was like 19-0 or something crazy like that, or 19-1, something crazy. So it's basically like, win this fight, you're in. And it was like 2 more years before he got in.
Wow.
And then once he got in, dude, he's just killing people. And so it's really cool to see that, and, you know, to see undefeated fighters get their first loss, and then that sparks something where they're just like, they're a whole different fighter now that they lost one, and they're just killing people. And then also the sadness of seeing it go the other way. Undefeated fighter loses first fight, never wins another fight.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it has to do with the mindset like we talked about. It's like, you know, it switches from I'm a winner, I lost, I'm a loser.
Yeah.
And they can't shake that. And for them, it's like, no, fuck that. For the others, it's like, I'm a winner, I lost, fuck that. I'm a winner, I don't lose. And then they take it up a notch, and then they see what it takes to be at the next level. And then they exceed that, and then they go right into the next level, and then their star power just goes up.
Yeah.
And so we got off on a 10-minute tangent there about,
I'm okay with
dude,
it.
but fighters, man, I'm telling you, these guys are my favorite people, because you see what savages they are in there, and, you know, and there's a few of them that aren't, but and they're so sweet, so nice, such great people. You see how they are with their families, like outside the cage, and you trade messages with them, and they're so respectful, and and then they're what you want them to be whenever you get in there and they win and you interview them. Like, man, I'll beat anybody down that's in the country. Fuck this dude that's, he wants some, tell him to come get it. I'll fight anybody, calling out people in the UFC, you're like, I love it. Yeah. And then outside of that, and they're like, it almost hurt their feelings to have to do that while they were in there, because they're so nice and, so kind as human beings. But they step in there and it's like, no, this is what I've decided to do with my life, and I don't have a backup plan. And so that's great to see. That's awesome. I love it.
Whenever 101 gets close, love to see if you could bring some of the fighters that you hold in high regard, see if we can get them on the podcast.
Oh, dude, I'm sure some of them will do it. Not before,
or maybe after,
but right after the fight.
Yeah,
dude, I'm sure they would love to do it, and especially ones that are local here. And a lot of these guys, it's turned into such a science now. A lot of these guys, when you start talking to them, they're so smart and so, my commentary partner, Alex Morono, he's a good example. He's at 22 fights in the UFC. He'll fight anybody, and dude, he is so smart. And I mean, he's not just smart about what he's doing for game planning and all those things. Dude, he's just an encyclopedia. He's so inquisitive about the history of fighting, and he can just, hey, who won this fight back in 2005, and he'll tell you how, and he'll tell you what the buildup was like, and so and so got hurt in training camp, and like he remembers all those details. And so it's really cool. And a lot of fighters are like that. They've become such students of it. And, if they decided to start doing it when they were 5 years old, now they're 18 or 19, it's amazing how great of students they are, and what a steward they are of the history of fighting. It's unbelievable. I love it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Blackbelt Mike, book out now, Improve Your Position. Catch him on Fury Fighting. Catch him. Your Instagram is Blackbelt Mike. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's Blackbelt Mike 99.
Blackbelt Mike 99.
Yeah, and get the book or audiobook anywhere you buy books or audiobooks, and subscribe to UFC Fight Pass. And they're the largest fight library in the world. Their library is bigger than Netflix, Hulu, any of them. They have the largest video library in the world. So, plus you get to see some cool fight nights, some prelims you don't normally see. And it's $10 a month, no contract, cancel anytime. It's a really good deal, and you get to see me.
Let's go, man. Appreciate your time, bro.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Absolutely.